Chapter 215, The False God Body. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Clash. By displaying his successful shadow of the Royal Wind Dragon, Jiang Yuochen spun around and divided himself into 9 illusory images. All of them swung their swords and chopped down toward the 3 evil warriors. It looked as if Jiang Yuochen was split into 9 petals that fell down in 9 directions. 9 sword techniques were performed at the same time and hit the 3 warriors who were rushing toward Jiang Yuochen. Boom! Then the 3 evil warriors at the Earth Realm level were attacked and flew out with a loud scream. Bang! 2 of them fell to the ground with a loud thump and were dead immediately with their necks cut off, and the blood continued to flow out from their necks. Practice had proven that they could not even withstand one move from Jiang Yuochen. The other man was an elder named Eldegzu. His cultivation had reached the final state of the Earth Realm, though his response was quicker than the other 2 and he escaped from having his neck cut. He had still gotten badly wounded. On his chest, there was a long trail of blood that had been cut by the Abyss Ancient Sword, which had almost cut his body in half. There was a look of horror in Eldegzu's eyes. He endured the great pain in his chest and let out a long shout. That sound was like a loud signal. Swish! The evil warriors under the mountain all came out and dashed toward the mountain top with their fast speed, completely surrounding Jiang Yuochen and Huang Yanjun. Hu Qingshan, who took the lead and walked in front of the procession, said with a smile, "Your Majesty, I hope you are well." Huang Yanjun answered, "Hu Qingshan, how dare you be so arrogant? Don't you know that if you annoy my father, he could give an order to destroy the entire poisonous spider club?" Hu Qingshan said without fear, "The Cayenne Yue Commandery does have strong national power with its numerous masters. Even 10 poisonous spider clubs could not contend with one Cayenne Yue Commandery. However, the poisonous spider club is part of the black market." "Your Majesty, are you sure your commandery could wipe out the black market?" Shen Feng, who was lying down in a pool of blood, stared at Hu Qingshan and said in a weak voice, "Young master, help me." With both of his legs having been cut off, Shen Feng lost half of his martial cultivation. Even if he were to recover from his injury, he would still be a disabled person. Hu Qingshan glanced at Shen Feng with a cold flash in his eye. "To my surprise, you defeated Shen Feng. It seems that I have underestimated you guys. But I have set an ambush on all sides. I'm afraid that you can't escape, even if you could fly." "Well, not necessarily." Jiang Yuochen looked at Blackie and said, "Now, we can only depend on you." Blackie forced a smile and prepared to shapeshift. With a succession of cracking sounds in his body, Blackie motivated all of his bones and flesh and swelled to 4 meters tall, just like a giant black tiger. 2 protrusions raised up from his back and spread out, turning into 2 black wings over 10 meters long. This was the first time for Huang Yanjun to discover that Blackie could shapeshift and was astounded by his transformation ability. Of course, she was only surprised at that initial moment. Then, she immediately flew onto Blackie's back. "Let's go, Blackie." Jiang Yuochen turned over and flew up onto Blackie's back as well, nestling up to Huang Yanjun. After all, due to this emergency situation, neither of them felt anything different. Meow. Blackie flapped his wings and turned into a black shadow, rushing toward the snowy night sky. Hu Qingshan's face turned white because he never expected that Jiang Yuochen could fly away. His face was slightly twisted as he shouted, "Release the God-killing arrow." In each of the 4 directions with the mountaintop as the center, a god-killing crossbow was placed. The crossbow mechanism of each god-killing crossbow had to be operated and opened by 2 warriors of the Black Realm simultaneously. Hu Qingshan knew that Jiang Yuochen could control the power of space and that a normal thunder arrow and a carriage-breaking arrow could not hurt him at all. Only by using god-killing arrows could his power of space be destroyed. The speed and impact of a god-killing arrow were far superior to an average arrow. Even though Jiang Yuochen could warp space, he might not be able to dodge a god-killing arrow. Originally, the 4 god-killing crossbows were prepared just in case, but now, they were being put to actual use. PHFFF. 4 god-killing arrows flew up into the sky, with each of them being 10 meters long. Each arrow shaft was as thick as a wine glass and its arrowhead was just like a huge flame. There was a shrill burst of wind that pierced through the air. Seen from a long distance, it looked like 4 flints were flying from the bottom of the earth, dragging a long tail behind them. and shooting at that fast-flying black cat. God-killing arrows. Their power is 10 times stronger than carriage-breaking arrows, and they're mainly used to fight against martial arts masters. Plenty of God-killing arrows could even kill martial arts legends in the heaven realm. Huang Yanqun became nervous again upon seeing those 4 fireballs behind them. Actually, Zhang Yuochen and Huang Yanqun could enter into the internal space of time and space spinal. If they did so, Blackie could shrink his body and avoid the god-killing arrows much easier. But if Zhang Yuochen were to do that, the time and space spinal would be exposed. And from then on, Zhang Yuochen would have no more cards. But Zhang Yuochen finally decided to release the space domain and use the power of space warps to change the paths of the god-killing arrows. It's just 4 god-killing arrows. How can that beat me? Don't use the space domain, Zhang Yuochen, leave it to me. Blackie was quite confident. As a wisp of lightning appeared in his body, Blackie improved his flying speed. Sometimes he flew straight, sometimes he dived sharply, and sometimes he huddled up. And finally, Blackie did elude the 4 god-killing arrows. There was a puzzled look in Huang Yanqun's beautiful eyes. With both of her hands tightly holding onto Blackie's long hair, she was very excited as she said, "This cat is not a normal savage beast. How about selling him to me, Zhang Yuochen?" "No." Zhang Yuochen smiled and shook his head. Suddenly, Zhang Yuochen had some unusual feelings and looked behind him. His relaxed mood became heavy once again. "Young Lord of Poisonous Spider has caught up." "What?" Huang Yanqun looked behind and found that young Lord of Poisonous Spider had grown a pair of light wings on his back and flew in the void space. Unexpectedly, his speed was even faster than Blackie's. He used the medium-level Wings of Wind, which could break out a speed of 200 meters per second. Damn it. That must be the one that I had owned. Huang Yanqun was very annoyed and gave a hard blow on Blackie's back. 1 medium-level Wings of Wind cost 5,000 merit points, which were worth more than 5 million silver coins. Even Huang Yanqun exchanged for only 1 Wings of Wind. When she was locked up in the Poisonous Spider Club, her Wings of Wind was taken away. Zhang Yuochen frowned slightly and said, "You had a medium-level Wings of Wind and you were still caught by the Poisonous Spider Club? Those evil warriors are very insidious and used a combined attack to catch me. I could not escape from their array even with the help of the medium-level Wings of Wind," Huang Yanqun answered. Young Lord of Poisonous Spider got closer, within 100 feet, and said with a proud smile, "You can't run away. You will soon be captured." What? Young Lord of Poisonous Spider flung his arm and a machete flew out, chopping toward Blackie flying ahead. Instantly, Zhang Yuochen stood up on Blackie's back and swung his sword. That machete was chopped apart and flew away. "I have to try my utmost today." With one hand grasping the hilt, Zhang Yuochen used the other hand to hold the sword body, as a flame-shaped mark appeared between his brows. In his chi-si, the glaring lights emitted from the heart of the sword linked up with the Abyss Ancient Sword. Under the control of the heart of the sword, the Abyss Ancient Sword was suspended directly in midair. Huang Yanqun, who was sitting on Blackie's back, and young Lord of Poisonous Spider chasing behind were astounded by what they saw. Heart integrated into sword. Young Lord of Poisonous Spider exclaimed. In the legends, only a half-saint could perform the heart integrated into sword. That was why young Lord of Poisonous Spider was so amazed. Chop! With a slight flick of his fingers, the Abyss Ancient Sword flew out and turned into a white flash, chopping toward young Lord of Poisonous Spider. Young Lord of Poisonous Spider withdrew his machete and resisted his attack. Fending off the Abyss Ancient Sword, Zhang Yuochen held his index finger and middle finger together and formed a sword skill. He removed his Abyss Ancient Sword again and chopped toward Hu Qingshan flying from another direction. Bang! Bang! In just a second, Zhang Yuochen chopped with his sword 10 times in a row, forcing young Lord of Poisonous Spider to be greatly flustered. Although my speed can reach 200 meters per second with the Wings of Wind, my capabilities would become very weak. Since Zhang Yuochen has arrived at the realm of heart integrated into sword and can use his sword to kill any enemy, continuing to battle is not a good thing for me. If they were on the ground, young Lord of Poisonous Spider had enough confidence to defeat Zhang Yuochen. Even if he were to use the heart integrated into sword, it could not stop him. But when flying in the air, young Lord of Poisonous Spider was at a disadvantage and could hardly win because Zhang Yuochen had grasped the heart integrated into sword. Although young Lord of Poisonous Spider was unwilling to give up, he stopped and suspended himself in midair, scowling at that black cat flying further and further away. He's not catching up. Zhang Yuochen gave a long sigh of relief and withdrew his abyss ancient sword. Sitting cross-legged on Blackie's back, Zhang Yuochen gripped 2 spiritual crystals and began to restore his genuine chi. After all, continuous fighting did consume much genuine chi and Zhang Yuochen could not keep fighting at all. Just now, Zhang Yuochen was on the verge of the exhaustion of genuine chi. Even if he were to force himself to pretend, Hu Qingshan would discover it if he chased him for even a moment. But for the great power of the heart integrated into sword, which had frightened away Hu Qingshan, they could not have escaped. Hu Qingshan had never seen such a sword defending technique before. Huang Yanqun looked at Zhang Yuochen and bit her lips slightly. She stopped her question upon seeing that Zhang Yuochen was practicing. She also consumed a great amount of genuine qi and started operating exercises to restore her genuine qi. After an hour, Zhang Yuochen recovered 30% of the genuine qi in his body. He opened his eyes, looking quite dignified. Hu Qingshan is so strong and hard to deal with, and the situation in Yunwu City is so disruptive. I'm afraid that it's hard to survive without powerful cultivation. Hu Qingshan is a 3-realm fighting genius, whose cultivation has reached the final state of the Earth Realm. I must break into the advanced stage of the Earth Realm as early as possible so I can contend with him more confidently. But how can I reach the desired level at the fastest speed? Zhang Yuochen was deeply thinking about this while practicing. Suddenly, an idea came into his mind. He thought of one ancient secret spell, the false god body. Zhang Yuochen's eyes lit up. The next month is the ceremony of worship. Maybe I can use that secret spell to despoil the sacrifice power. Then, I can break into the advanced stage of the Earth Realm more easily. Maybe I can even reach the dawn state of the Earth Realm. A warrior who practiced that secret spell could condense the false god body with his own martial soul. At the time of sacrifice, the warrior could release his false god body and captured the sacrifice power. Of course, that ancient secret spell was quite difficult to practice and required the aid of one kind of special spiritual dose. If that spiritual dose could be found, Zhang Yuochen still had the chance to accomplish the false god body in a short time.